So on Saturday, 13 March here in Central Europe, about 11 in the morning, we get this amazing new moon. This new moon, very closely conjoined Venus, an exalted Venus in Pisces, very close to Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces. And this is a new moon of spiritual connection and desire and yearning for this knowledge even, or visceral knowledge of what we are, what we're ensconced in this human incarnation. This new moon is a real opportunity to say, all right, show me what I'm here for. What does it mean to be a spiritual being having a human experience? You've all heard that, right? We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And again, for those atheists out there, just think about it this way. If you believe that we have a kind of programming, a biological programming through evolution, even the atheists out there, you have a programming in your model, I believe, and that programming, there's a way to tap into it. You know, there's, they call them life hacks or life programming, where you can do things to tap into your programming to maximize the potential of your DNA. This is the kind of yearning or longing that you might have for that this week. Longing to know your inner makeup. Remember, your body's water. This is the immutable water sign ruled by the expansive Jupiter. Our body is 60% water. It's very Jupiterian when you think about the body. We just look at the body, that I think it represents Pisces, how much water is in the body. But so you atheists might feel this new moon as an opportunity to get into knowing the body, knowing the makeup. And remember, Jupiter is a God symbol. It can represent religion, religious teachers, teaching, truth, higher knowledge, wisdom. Lightning is God, right? That force of lightning coming down and cracking into our earth. That's the announcement that God is here and God is making himself known or herself known or themselves known. It's the power of the forces that are unseen. The thing about this chart with the new moon, the moon and the sun are ruled by Jupiter because they're in Pisces, so the domicile order is Jupiter, but Jupiter is an aversion. Jupiter can't see the moon and the sun. It's wonderful that Venus is there, that exalted Venus, to really add a sense of love and yearning and pleasure around this yearning for divinity. But the analogy I want to throw here, you might have heard this. I grew up in Texas, so this kind of Southern Protestantism, very influential where I'm from. But this story we were told when I was a kid about the footsteps, you know, and you're walking on a beach, maybe you collapse and then you were carried, and there was footsteps in the sand, but there was no one there. And so this is the idea that Jesus was carrying you, but you couldn't see him. So this unseen Jesus was taking you from difficulty and then into safety. And the only thing you could see were the footsteps. I think that's the energy of this new moon. Maybe it's the footsteps new moon, where we can't really see the forces that are so benefiting us, but they are benefiting us. And Jupiter is still in its own Egyptian term. Jupiter has the best dignity it'll have in Aquarius. It's separating from Saturn, and it is in its Egyptian term, strong. If you think about Aquarius being Saturn's house, yes, Saturn is there. Yes, Jupiter is coming up against the restrictive nature of Saturn. There's no way around it, but it's in a space there in Aquarius where it can just do a little bit of what it likes to do, a little bit of the generosity, maybe long-term thinking around generosity. It's not a Jupiter that's the pleasure now, the satisfy me now. It's the Jupiter that's the little bit cooler but strategic, with great ideas that can, once they're implemented, can really expand in a structured way that has longevity and that has reach. You know, it's the faith, the great faith in the unseen, hope. That's what hope is. You can't see the future. You hope for it. That's what Jupiter ultimately is hope. So I think we can access some hope here, even though we don't know what's going to happen. And it fits what's going on in the world, right? We don't know what's going to go on this summer. There's a lot of optimism. We just don't know what the rules are. We don't know what countries will be open. We don't know which populations can be involved in, you know, the return to some modicum of normalcy or some modicum of how life was. And that is what this moment is saying. It's like, have faith, have hope, that even if we don't know, we can trust that something beautiful, something divine will be expressed, and we'll have access to that in its right time. Like, it's this thing where if I align in every moment with just that inner truth of the power of wisdom and love, and, you know, the certainty that life is good ultimately, I'm an optimist, then it doesn't even matter really where I am. I could sit in the room. I'm sitting here in this room, and it's lovely and beautiful. I mean, everything, I can just look around. It's like there's so much beauty everywhere, and I trust that this summer, 6 months from now, a year from now, I'm going to be where I need to be. I'm going to be with who I need to be with. And that can never be taken away. This trust, this hope, this optimism, even suffering can't take it. We're going to suffer. That can't take it away. And that's not a Pollyanna thing. It's really not a Pollyanna thing. And I don't want to minimize again the fact that life is very difficult. The structures of power are extremely oppressive at times. It's not to say ignore that, but it is just to have that kernel of the hope they can't ever take away. They being just, the forces of reality that are part of the system of suffering. And just to remind us that this is happening right near the South Bending. So the sun has conjoined the South Bending last week, but we're right here between eclipses. And that's another thing that ties us to the strange sort of unseen forces of our reality eclipses do. This syzygy comes and says, all right, since the last eclipse season, life is probably settling in now. We're coming into spring. The difficult Aquarian pileup has diminished, but hey, eclipses are coming again. Your life's going to get shaken up again, as it always does and as it always should. That's the nature of our ever-changing bodies and our aging, right? The mutable sign here, the mutable axis here, is all about shifting and changing. And every moment is the previous moment and the next moment. It's a threshold blur between two moments. There actually isn't a present. It's like a river, and we can have attention and we can just see that river, but you can never stop it completely. And then the other thing, so by Egyptian term, this new moon has Mars ruling it. So there's a martial component here, and I think we're called with this new moon to integrate our Jupiter, our Mars in Gemini. Our Mars in Gemini now is going to start coming into more power. The writing projects you're having to do. I've got a bunch of writing projects that just came to me right before Mars hit Gemini. I'm having to pound those keys. It's just, this new moon is going to activate that even more so. But look where Mars is in Gemini vis-a-vis the new moon and vis-a-vis Venus and Neptune. It's being overcome. These planets in Pisces are in earlier position. So it's almost like the Mars, while ruling by Egyptian term, is asking these planets, hey, help me, integrate me. I need your help. Mars and Gemini is saying, hey, Venus and Pisces, help me figure out how to use my power, use my language and my analytics in a way that can serve this divine moment here in Pisces. And so it's like an idea of aligning our physical body and what we choose to do with it, and our thoughts and how we want to deploy those thoughts, aligning them with this very Venusian, Ketuian asceticism. And so I always think about with Venus in Pisces, it's just like baths, warm, comfortable baths, anything that's pleasurable. If I find, like for me, if I'm going to go out of control with stress and writing, it's like, no, I'm taking walks. I need to deliberately get some pleasure and some physical love, even for 5 or 10 minutes. Just like I've been kind of massaging my own shoulders. That can help. Just get some massages. But whatever you can do, that Venus will help integrate and allow that Mars to work in its full capacity. It's now in this mutable square with a node. So it's not like a Mars that doesn't have to deal with important questions, of what is life, who are we, what is love, what's my purpose. That's integrated here with the nodes being part of the mutable axis. And that's the thing, any moment where I'm stressed out or whatever, you can come back. You can say, all right, breathe, that's Gemini, and that's Aquarius, that nice air trine. Breathe and just say, all right, my life is just, what is it? One life. I'm interconnected to all these people. I look outside, I've got all these people walking around down here. There's whole stories and lives, people loving, people, losing love. People, like little kids are out here. There's a school right here. They're so hopeful. They're so happy. So there's billions of little universes everywhere, and each of us are just one. Sometimes it can help when I'm struggling with problems to contextualize myself and who I am against this kind of greater whole that we're a part of. That's the Neptune, that's the Pisces, that's the Jupiter, and that's the Venus there. There's a fixed star. There's a fixed star, always a fixed star conjunct this new moon. This is the fixed star Markab in the shoulder of Pegasus, the horse. And anytime there's a fixed star conjoined a natal planet, for example, or conjoined a new moon or a transiting planet, that fixed star is connected to a constellation, and that constellation has a mythology attached to it that is part of the energy and the kind of synergy of how that moment then comes into our reality. We get that weight and that continuity of mythology that we are taking on. And so that's how I like to work with fixed stars. You can read these books where there's delineations of horror and all kinds of hyperbolic and dramatic stuff. I like to read the myth and think about the theme and see how that theme might be applying to the moment or my life if I'm doing a natal delineation. And this one's amazing because the Pegasus myth is such an amazing myth. There was a Bellerophon who Bellerophon wanted to get out of Earth. He just didn't like the earth. So that's the suffering. That's where the spirituality comes in. Remember, we were talking earlier about monks, and you're suffering when you're practicing in a monastery and everything's stripped away. That might be the Ketu, the asceticism. So this life is suffering, and you want to get away, right? You want to escape. So he gets on Pegasus and says, I'm flying to heaven. And it was just too ambitious. It was too much of a desire to escape. And that fits so much with Neptune, which is very close to the new moon. Neptune is this kind of delusional energy where we can maybe want too much dissipation. We want to get rid of our minds because the mind can throttle. That's what this myth is saying. And so he flies to heaven but falls off. And then Pegasus gets to heaven and is put in the sky. But Bellerophon comes back down. You know, it's a theme of trying to avoid an escapism. When we try to escape things or we embrace escapism, it doesn't work. And then we end up suffering. We end up having to come back down to the fundamentals. We have to hit bottom, basically, when we try to seek escapism. We get knocked off and we have to come back down to Saturn. It just fits so well, this Markov conjunction with the new moon, with all the themes that we were discussing earlier. Yearning for the divine, a wanting to escape suffering. This is saying be careful. Be careful and stay grounded as much as possible in this moment. You know, I think it's lovely to seek and want to know truth and know, you know, be a seeker, as they say, that Who song, They Call Me the Seeker. It's wonderful energy, but head in the clouds without looking down at the feet and what they're doing is a recipe for disaster. And so this kind of grounded approach is key, I feel like, in this moment. That's what the astrology is saying. It's telling us, be careful. Don't be too avoidant or desirous of escapism. And so it's like a bad judgment transit. You know, the energy of wanting to do something with a good motive, like I want to escape suffering, or I want to alleviate suffering. It's a tactic question. What are the tactics for alleviating suffering? And if we get too overambitious, too kind of vain, it doesn't work. So think about the function. And I think that's where this can come in here with Saturn being the domicile ruler still of the whole sky. Every planet eventually by domicile is ruled by Saturn. Saturn in Aquarius is king still, and lean on that in this moment. What are the structures? What are the plans? What are the strategies of implementation? Talk to your elders. Read books by people that have done what you want to do, and that can help you get practical and think long term. So that's the new moon. Enjoy the Piscean new moon. I cannot wait to experience it. And yeah, trying to stay grounded, even though my heart may be yearning to go other places, you know. So good luck to you. So thanks for being here. As always, you can book tarot and astrology readings with me, sjanderson144.com. Just click here to schedule a reading. So just enjoy the week. Enjoy this very spiritualized sense of divine interconnectivity that's on offer this week. Savor it, because this type of energy has not been here for months. I mean, I've been doing these weekly reviews for a long time. This is a special opportunity to feel some of this kind of spiritualized, unseen force of reality coming into our lives. So enjoy it.